This is the new Hoodoo Podcast. Same amazing podcast content, but now with a cooler, newer name. This is a podcast that invites you to join two Mississippi mystics and real-life sisters as we share all of the ways we use our intuitive gifts and spiritual tools to create an intentioned spiritual life. If you're longing to initiate, cultivate, or evolve your spirituality, reconnect to your ancestral spiritual heritage, and create a holistic and modern spiritual lifestyle that respects your uniqueness and embraces eclecticism, you are in the right place. We know all too well that it's lonely out there for new mystics, witches, and hoodoos. So know this, you are welcome and wanted here in this magical and charmed corner of Beyonce's internet. Welcome to the new Hoodoo. And in this week, we're talking all about the arrival of fall. And so, okay, maybe we don't show the other seasons the same intensity of the love that we all do for autumn, but what can we say is our season? They don't call it the season of witch for nothing. This is the time of year when we send our littles back to school. This is when we rededicate ourselves to our altars, to our ancestral veneration practices, and we prepare our hearts and homes for the harvest and happy homecomings. Enjoy this week's episode and how and why Andy and I stand so hard for our favorite season, autumn. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to jump right into our tarot card pull for this episode as we get ready to stand autumn, as we get ready to get excited about fall and share all of our favorite things to do, the way we're doing our intention setting, getting the house ready with our tarot card pull. And of course, this makes so much sense. The Four of Wands, I'm holding it up. Y'all try to imagine me holding the card up. Maybe I'll put some video up so y'all can see. This is the Four of Wands and the tarot. This is our tarot dedication for the episode. And it makes so much sense. Like, in all of our conversations, like behind the scenes, Andy and I are getting psyched for fall. Like, we have adult children. Like, we can't even call them adult-sized children. We have my oldest nephew, his lovely wife, and our new honey bunny, Andy Rose. My daughter Hallie has gone off to college. So Andy and I, like, we have a lot of preparing we have to do for the fall. Like, there's so much. And the Four of Wands is wonderful because it gives us an idea. And to all of you, and I want you all to use it and take it and use it as your kind of, your totem, your visual aid, your inspiration. Imagine four wands making this beautiful, beautiful shape, think of the four stable legs of a table. We love the number 4 for its solidity, its stability. And in this card, we see preparations for a feast, welcoming.
Girl, that card looks so peaceful.
Doesn't it?
My goal is for my holidays to look that peaceful. It's so fun.
We're going to inculcate peace. We're going to bring peace in. We're going to woo-saw.
I might have to rub that card on my forehead in a week, but
look at it. Doesn't it look? It looks like little young Megan and Kayla. It looks like little Hallie and Reese, like with flowers in their hair, welcoming people into the home. We see the Four Wands, and it's laden.
Yeah, and then you know what Andy sees, my suspicious natures, but like who them dudes in the back though going into the tent? What's going on?
They're doing the heavy lifting and the hard work, Andy, getting us ready to celebrate.
Awesome.
That's Tajay and Uncle C in the back, moving the heavy stuff. Preparing the home, getting the home ready, and us getting ready to welcome people in on our terms with our specifications in ways that are meaningful and poignant and important and significant to us, y'all. The Four of Wands, it's a wonderful card. When this card comes up in readings, we're talking about things like conventions, weddings, like community gatherings. Anytime we gather large groups of people together, friends, family, community, and celebrating as a community. It's a perfect card for fall. And Andy, I'm going to make you take a picture of this and put it on the wallpaper of your cell phone to get us in the spirit. And Andy, I have an idea. So Andy has a special listener she would like to shout out, and I would like to dedicate the Four of Wands to them. Andy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I was just going to shout out one of our listeners because she reached out to me on Instagram, and Halicue also got a shout out from a reader that we basically interpreted as y'all needed y'all's asses back in the studio because we miss y'all. But it was very sweet. She's a Mississippi native as well too. So India, thank you so much for reaching out. I just wanted to say all of you all that reach out and write to us that tell us how much the podcast means to you and what it connects to. It's wonderful. It's amazing for you to share those positive vibes with folks. And I know how I am. Like, in my grandma's spirit, if I care enough to sit down and write out a note in some form, that's big energy. So thank you so much for sharing that energy with us. But also, you're a Mississippi native, so what's up, girl? In the background,
crooked letter.
Just imagine like P Valley soundtrack playing in the background, Mississippi Pride.
Yes.
Hey. I see you.
Hey.
I see you. That girl in the back. I love that song by Beyonce too. I'm always like, that girl in the back. That's us. The girls from Mississippi. So I appreciate you reaching out. Another thing that I do want to share with our listeners too is that I am as much as I am a public figure, I am also one who has a tendency to be a little more low key than my sister. So I always appreciate you all appreciating that part of me as well too. So India spoke to my spirit because she was like, I'm kind of like that too. And I'm like, I appreciate that. So we out there connecting, y'all. That's what we do this for. Because in the backgrounds, we fight a lot. I want to kill her. She works me hard. I call her a slave driver all the time. And we could do that because we Black. You don't do that, but we can do that. If you're not Black, you can. I can call her a slave driver. Can't other people can't.
Swearing I be working her. I don't be working you that hard.
Halicue be like, oh, girl, how you doing? But by the way, can you get a new mic? Like, turn your stuff on and whatever. Oh, girl, you gonna be all right. I'll talk to you Sunday. Bye. She'll be like,
I know.
Girl, bye.
And get that content for me. Bye. Get that content for Big Sister. Bye.
It's okay. It's her Leo energy.
I can't help it. I love you. And we're a lot of fire working on each other. She's my sister is the coolest person on earth. I wouldn't I don't know that I take that back. I podcast with other cool people, but there was no way I was going to start my podcast journey with anybody other than my sister. Andy, let's get ready to jump into it. You and I, hand in hand, Andy taking the lead as she always has. It's so strange as my little sister takes the lead in so many things. I'm so grateful for her, and kicking ourselves out of the broom closet. And it was the best time for us to do it. We were cruising right into the beginning of fall. And so it's special. It's a special time. Like, we began our really, really intention, spiritual path during the fall. And so as we get ready to talk about what we're doing to prepare the home, you give some folks some information. Talk to me a little bit about your mindset. How do you feel going into it? I feel like this one is different than any autumn, any turning of the wheel of the year, fall, autumn. It feels super, super different. We'll get into it. But how is it for you?
We talk about that all the time. The fall. First of all, as you are learning and falling into your spiritual practice, that this is kind of the wheel of the year, if you will. Like, when I say that, people's eyes automatically get big. There is something about the integration of the spirits that, whether you're indigenous, a person of color, if you're a child of the diaspora, there's something that really resonates in you. Because if you are in a nature-based practice, then just like when we talk about moon cycles, you immediately understand the importance of recognizing the wheel of the year. Because the wheel of the year doesn't just represent time to us, right? In the movement of time, it also is a living representation, or a representation of how the earth regenerates and takes care of itself too. So if nature is a part of our practice, if understanding your spirits, your goddesses, your spiritual journey is any shape, form, or fashion earth-based, then you got to understand why the changing of the seasons are important. It literally is how the earth works, right? It would be the equivalent of saying ooh, I love women, but I don't ever want to talk about how their bodies work. That's weird. We would tell you that you don't really love women, right? Because the functionality of our body works is intrinsic to us, which is the same thing with the passing of the year. So with me, when I think about fall, I actually gear myself to start thinking about, well, what is the earth doing? Because I should be mimicking that in my own life, right? And cute, every year you're going and growing through something different. So this fall, and Halicue knows I love this book. She knows I love Yeye Tish. She has this book called Carnival of the Spirit, and it's seasonal celebrations and rites of passages. And she really talks about a lot of these different rites of passages and changes of the seasons across the year. And I love the way she talks about, I'll read a snippet about what she talks about autumn, but I always think of autumn as a time of transformation. Think about the leaves changing, right? Our greenery of summer is kind of dying off and preparing. It's a transitioning. It's kind of it's a slowing down, and it's a time for us though to not get ready to actually go to sleep, which is kind of what winter represents, but it is actually really a time for us to focus on transformation, What is change to us? What does it mean to reflect on all of the things that we have experienced, all of the beauty and, wonderment of the summer? How do we take that in a reflective way and get ready for the change and transformation that is going to be our next chapter? It's about transformation. One thing that Yeye says of this, and it's so beautiful, and it's right after she has this prayer to Oya. If you practice any type of tradition of the African diaspora, Oya is the goddess of change and transformation. So she talks a lot about Oya when she talks about fall. And this is a really, really beautiful part that I would like to read, Q, if you don't mind, because I think it sets up our conversation well. And she says it so much better than I. Softly a whistle rises in the wind, gently the dust broom sweeps. Leaves rustle against the earth. She rises, growing stronger, standing taller, pushing farther, yielding more. Oya, queen of the winds of change. Long and swift she dances through our lives, hurtling lightning, spitting fire as furiously torrential rains fall. We reap the harvest. We grasp the shafts of wheat and rip them up from the soil. Oya, mother of transformation, we work so well for her. Oya is the goddess of transformation, but she also represents, she is also the gatekeeper to the afterlife, right? She is kind of the keeper of our ancestral knowledge, right? She also is the one that represents the power and the strength of our ancestors. She's also a warrior spirit. She don't play. She's not one of these goddesses that are sitting on her altar. She is a warrior goddess. So and right now in this season, oh, girlfriend, anything, and we'll have to, pop witch moment. If you haven't seen Warrior Woman King, that's Oya energy.
Yes.
Even their costumes with all of the rainbows in their costumes, I was like, oh, they knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
The Yoruban jewelry imagery. Like, we'll be talking about this movie for a long time. But that is the energy that we're talking about. She's a warrior goddess. So when we talk about transformation and change and some of these energies around her, like hurricanes and destruction, is very similar to the goddess Kali Ma. It's all about how change and transformation requires a leveling, if you will. There's a certain destructive nature to that, but it's necessary to create new surfaces, new foundations, new areas in our life where we can grow and change. So that's what we focus on in autumn. And so for me, as I'm preparing for fall, me and Q said we're going to be candid. We're really candid. A lot of my personal journey right now is we're doing a lot of therapy and we're dealing with a lot of, kind of unpacking some of our shared family trauma so that we will learn how to deal with that better. So that is my own personal digging into those things that I'm doing. But for me, for fall there's also, I'm doing that with the lens on, I want to show up the best way I can for my kids moving forward. So like we have created a whole new generation in our family. I have a granddaughter now. And so this is going to be the first holiday season that she's coming home. So very much like Q said, me and Cameron have been talking because it's weird. Like even I'm the woman energy in the home. It's been a long time since we've had other important female energy to us, right? Because they're always usually trained to like, well, you're the female energy in the house. What is this? And I'm like, we don't have... Like we need to have baby stuff in the house. We've got to have stuff down for her to put down. And then they also have a tendency to think about my oldest son, like Tajay's coming home. They forget that he has a wife. So I literally have to physically remind my two other sons, there is a whole
that's gonna be
grown person that is now attached.
Girl, because you remember how we didn't like Uncle Marilyn, Aunt Marilyn and Carolyn's boyfriends. Like we didn't like Uncle Nathan. I didn't even think about that. Like Uncle Nathan and Uncle Junior's like girlfriends. Like we were giving people, except Aunt June. I think Aunt June's the only person that ever cruised in.
Especially my Scorpio.
That's gonna be different. I didn't even think about that.
Give a shit, but well, he's going to move through it differently because first of all, I'm the only other female that they ever have in the house other than like Nana or other family that they know. This is their first time meeting her as well too. But there's also little baby energy in the house. And, I explained to Cameron, I said, you're the youngest. We were walking around getting ready for his birthdays in fall too. And I had to remind him, I'm like, this is our last 8-year-old birthday that I'm going to have. So there's also, like Halicue says, we have our own regular just lifestyle transitions that we're going through as well too. So like as our family is growing and going through these big milestones, becoming a grandparent, Halicue's oldest daughter just went off to college for the first time. That's why I sent you that funny TikTok about, Ma, I got a question. It says take 2 aspirin. How many am I supposed to take? Ma, my phone bill ain't right. I'm finna call him. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
I love that.
What's my permanent address? Like, what is a permanent?
There's a whole series of those TikToks. And so even that, I put behind the meme for Halicue. I said, I love those calls because it also is our connection to let them know that we are that touch point now for them of knowledge and direction. We become their true north as they're going through this life on their own, as they're going through their own adult transitions. And at the same time, for me, I've got these span of generations of kids. Halicue also has younger kids at home. So we are still trying to show up for these younger kids that are still at home because they're, as you were kind of celebrating a transition for one child, you still have other children in your home that are having their own unique, even though like we've been through teenagerism before, it's unique for Reese, right, Q? Like, cause
it's different. It's different for Reese Pops and Andrew than it was with Tajay, than it was for Hallie. Like it's very different. And I just want to answer the question I asked Andi. I love that you got us started with that discussion of Oya and her energy and that spirit and that energy of transformation. How transformation can sometimes be, you have to be a warrior spirit in order to withstand the change that feels very powerful. And Andi's right. I also think it's interesting. We're cruising into this during, Mercury being in retrograde. Like, and, Andi and I have a lot of respect for retrogrades. We're not afraid of anything, but we respect it. And so when we're having challenges or we're going through the more difficult part of transformation, I don't mind that it's taking place during a Mercury in retrograde, because what should we be doing in a retrograde? Looking at how in the past cycle, the past year, the past season, how have we transformed? Like, what can we take? What can we learn? Hopefully there's been some progress. Hopefully there's been some evolution. Hopefully we're able to set some fuckery and some effed up behaviors, ways of thinking like in the past, or we've come to, we can acknowledge some shit. We can name some things like what they actually are and speak them aloud. And so I just want to say as a little preview, Andi and I are going to be speaking some things aloud. We're always discreet about our personal life, but this is the real stuff. This is where the healing of our hoodoo or whatever our ancestral tradition helps us to do. So, and yeah, girl, like these transformations, actually having adult children, I feel, Andi, somehow we're still moms hardcore, and especially Andi, because Andi's got a little.
I just have to add in here that I was completely okay with your response to you brought up that bitch Mercury in retrograde, cause I would like to say personally in my own life,
be respectful. We're trying to get through it.
Her name, I treat her like that bitch on the other side of the room that we know we don't like each other. We ain't never liked each other on sight. If you say something to me, it's gonna be a problem. So just stay on your side of the room, and I'm gonna stay on mine. And Halicue was like that friend in the middle, is always trying to help us understand each other and come to some type of agreement so we can all, and I'm like, see, here you go, because when you say her name, here this bitch come over here and now we got to fight. The minute you mentioned her name last week, I lost my keys, I couldn't find my iPod case, like 16 fucked up things happened to me in a row. And I said, here you go, Halicue, bringing her. So I was talking about transition and change. And that was fine. But since you brought her up, let me just say, as we are working through transition and change, and especially because I'm going through some very deep, and we said we were going to be transparent this year, I'm going through some very deep, like, as we are going through counseling, like even thinking about family dynamics and how we're raising kids and that type of thing. And so when I say that, I say Mercury in retrograde is also real, because even though we're talking about transformation and change, not every part of your transformation process is for everyone. I'm going to say that again, just for the people in the back. Not every part of your personal transformation journey is for everybody. And that's also a lesson that I think I'm learning this particular season, is just because you are changing, first of all, doesn't mean other people are changing. I think we kind of know that in the spiritual community. But it also doesn't mean that other people that love you are ready to change. Hate to say it. It doesn't mean that other people who are in your sphere even know how to process or begin to understand how fundamentally hard the process of change is. Right? Like, just because you have a spiritual community, or like me and Halicue have sisters, that we have people who can help us process through. There are some people who would rather chew their own arm off, right, than to actually face the truth behind some of the pain in their life, right? What their parents have done to them, what the society has done to them. They just really would prepare to stay shielded. So I think that Mercury in retrograde in connection with Oya teaches us not every transformation is for each to share with each other. And we have to remember how our change speaks to other people, right? Like, there are some times when I go through something in therapy and I just be so quick to call Halicue that I'm like, ooh, let me stop. Because Halicue was on a 5-week vacation with her family, maybe about to stab her husband. Like, my preparedness to talk about something has to start taking into consideration how, like, Halicue has to have time to hear it, process it, integrate that into her understanding of her life and what that means for her significantly, right? Her moments that she had that are outside of me. Just because we lived together in the same house for years doesn't mean, her moments impacted her the same as I do. And you know what I mean? So there are some times in life where I have to pause myself and say, just because someone understands me and knows me doesn't mean that they're ready to hear what my transformative process is. There are literally times where I'm like, okay, cute, hey, how you doing? Everything all right? Like today before she started the podcast, she was like, you all right? Anything I need to know?
in advance before we press record.
But it's Girl, things like that. So just when you say that about Mercury in retrograde, it is true. I think that sometimes we have to remember. Mercury always reminds me she's such a fickle bitch too. Just that it's almost like a way she trips you up. You think you're doing something, don't you? Boom. And she trips you up just to remind you, right? That sometimes we need to slow down.
Told you to slow
and think about.
Yeah, I told you to slow down, but you didn't want to slow down.
I'll get off on topic. Halicue giving me that look like the lady in church.
No. But what you said, it flows beautifully into something else I want to say about that, and like messages. And, if we think about the energy of Mercury, air energy, communication, ideas, like how things are being communicated, I feel like I'm getting a lot of affirmation from the universe, whether it's from other friends, other members of my family, especially my sisters, because y'all know we got 11 sisters, like there's 6 of us, like all together. But I feel like also from the universe, from my other, other people in my, spiritual community, and also from the social medias, that it's okay, that like a lot of affirmation about doing shit different, like especially going into fall, like what are our celebrations going to be like? Who, are we gonna continue to break these like unhealthy like family patterns, or are we making our own new traditions? Like what are we? I feel like there's tons of affirmation around that. Like, yeah, we're going to be doing things different. We're not, Gen X may be the last generation. I think this great TikToker was like, might be the last generation to do like doing gatherings around the holidays, especially around fall, because it's back to back to back, because that's the way we always did it, because that's what's expected of us, that it's like this obligation. So Andi and I are about to go full tilt into preparing the house, preparing the home, getting ready for guests, homecoming, feasting. Andi, tell me, what are some of the things that you're most looking forward to, and how your spirituality is going to be impacting how you prepare the home for this, again, like this season of back to back to back rededication, to our rededication celebration of family, and rededication to our altars and practice?
Well, the first thing that kind of happens for us as far as the home is, I think, I'm not going to say I used to suffer from seasonal affect disorder. I used to have a lot of mourning around summer.
You totally used to suffer from seasonal, like you totally did.
Because I think a lot of it was because I didn't understand the practice of like, it's a transition and it's okay to mourn being outside, right? Because I'm a gardener, I love being outside. I love outdoor activities. So I think a part of like how I'm preparing for the season is taking these last few opportunities. Like there's this amazing time in Texas, like where it stops being searingly hot and it like breaks in a moment, but it's not cold like it is where you are, because Halicue is 70 degrees every day. And I'm like, ooh, girl, bitch, it's cold. Like, where's my jacket? Where's my light sweater? It's 60 degrees. This is insane. There's that witching out where it's, it's back to like 80 degrees, 70 degrees is nice in the morning. It's not overpowering. You can be outside and like not kill yourself and, enjoy a bicycle ride and do that. So I'm trying to really take some time to enjoy and appreciate and very strategically incorporate more of that into my day. So I work remotely and I'm starting to spend a lot of time, like you'll notice me right now in front of my window being open. Having sunlight into the home is super important for me. We are going into the seasons where we are transitioning to green things that have been outside. So cues for a lot of our listeners, like a lot of their house plants and stuff like that have been outdoors, right? Because this is the only time they really can live outdoors. And we're going to start bringing those things inside. So for me, I start, taking my house plants, things like that, and preparing them for indoor living, right? Because they've been outside picking up bugs and mites and all this stuff. So I really start to refocus again on plant care because I've been outdoors and in the street so much. Like I'm sitting here looking at the plants on my desk, like they start needing a lot of care to get ready for indoors. I had a summer garden that I'm letting grow out. Looking at where I am mentally this year, I am probably not going to have a fall garden. So my probably final chop of my garden is going to happen in the next couple of weeks just to get it put to bed. And in the fall, I start to think of if you're going to do a fall planting, we're usually focusing on crops that are like cold crops, right? Think about Thanksgiving dinner, okra, potatoes, garlic, stuff that's going to grow and thrive usually underground during the winter. Like if you're feeling kind of low energy, because some of us are, we've been talking about it, all these retrogrades and 57 planets and stuff sitting on us right now. Like it may be that you want to, one thing I did a couple of months ago was I bought some ginger. I didn't do whatever I needed to do it with. It started to sprout. I threw it in a pot. It's now a ginger plant on my back porch. Think about things like that. Yeah, I have ginger. Girl, I didn't expect it to do anything. Sometimes I just, So if you're collecting seeds or like the wildflowers in my bed, I'm letting them grow and dry out. Collect your seeds and then mow that shit under, right? Get it ready to rest. If you are going to replant like flowers for fall, then mums, chrysanthemums, things that are going to grow throughout the fall. If you go to if you go to your local, not Lowe's or Target or whatever, you go to your local garden stores, they're going to show you in their landscaping section what is available and what's good to grow for fall. Remember, now, if you go to Lowe's, they're going to try to get you, they're going to want to provide everything that you want, which is not always what you should be growing. So put things and for me, for fall and going into winter, the ground is going into a point of rest. So if you are growing things, think about things that are low energy for the soil because you really want to start rebuilding the soil, right? Putting down your conditioners that can just lay there. If you, Halicue, if you separate out your stuff, because in California you have to separate out your trash, all of your green stuff, start leaving it on a canister and just dumping it on your garden beds. Like, because you usually don't do a fall garden. If you're going to turn them over, chop everything else and let that stuff just start growing and decaying into the soil. And then that way, it'll just keep the soil growing.
I have a black herbalist question. So Josh and I are going to be, one of the things we're doing, he's really looking forward to doing is turning over the garden, like you're saying. We're going to do it together. But I know you do, like in your, is there, because I'm going to be since we're doing it together and he really wants to do it together, I would like to set some intentions and do a little bit of subtle work. Are there any, and I know sometimes you put crystals.
Every season we put crystals in the dirt. So
whether we were doing it with kids or with your significant other, if we're sowing the seeds of, like going into a beautiful, harmonious Four of Wands type fall, what would you recommend we think about? Like if there were any crystals or anything special you would recommend?
You always want to use clear quartz because it's an amplifier. So like, especially in my hoodoo herbal beds, each one of those herbs already has a use. So I'm going to put clear quartz in there because it's going to amplify the power of those particular herbs, right? So it's not really that you need an intention around them. You just really want to boost and make those herbs super powerful and useful for whatever their intended purposes are. So that's kind of the same prayer I say that, hey, help amplify the power and the use of these herbs for our benefit this fall, right? Keep us healthy, keep us safe. Pink quartz is a great quartz for self-healing and love. So cue all your flowering plants that we love to bring in our house that remind us of our ancestors. I love putting rose quartz around them.
Okay.
Citrine. Think about the energy that you bring, right? You got a lot of ocean energy. I love bringing a lot of, amethyst to me is a huge crystal that has a huge representation to me of ancestral lines because it's a spiritually connecting crystal. So I put those around like my rose bushes, the things that I'm using and collecting for rose petals and that are beautiful in parts of my candles. I put those around for different intentions. Now, girl, in your house plant.
Oh God, don't get started on my house plants because
like plants that are strategically. Halicue, your house plants are fine. Halicue has these beautiful plants that she just needs to put in the right place, but she's got these beautiful banks of goddamn natural windows because she lives in the side of a mountain in California. So she just needs to move all of her plants like 3
put them towards a light source,
windows, and she would have a jungle. I told her, I moved 3 plants. I'm like, in 3 months you'll have a jungle. Don't water them and just keep them here, and you'll be like,
I know. Andy was walking around my house looking at plants like, I know this bitch knows what photosynthesis is. I know she knows. I know she took advanced.
I looked at one and I was like, oh, poor baby. She wants you to be here, but you don't want to be here. Let's go to this big ass 20-foot window that she has right here. And you always think about it from the other side because I'm sitting here in my life going, if I had these windows, and then in my mind I was going, bitch, if you had the windows, it would be 1,000 degrees in your house. You would be
because Halicue also doesn't have air conditioning in the house either. If you had those big windows in Texas and no air conditioning, it'd just be a pressure cooker.
So anyway, your plants, you can put protective crystals in your house plants. So if you've got them like by your doorway or in different parts of your house, girl, you can put protective crystals in your plants and then watch how motherfuckers act when they come sit by them. I love to do that. Like put you some good obsidian, some black tourmaline, some protective crystals and put some protective info in there and then like put them, you need to do them like between 2 ferns. You need to sit your company right in between those pots of house plants. And you'll start seeing people have a reaction to that kind of energy that you're setting in your home. So I love putting protective crystals in your house plants. Now for a more positive vibe and to not drive your company crazy, because sometimes we don't always get to protect who's in our house. I always will tell you, think about when I talk about seasonality, I have a baby who has an October birthday. So I've always been a Halloween fan. Halicue will tell you I'm kind of somewhat of a Disney fanatic. Nightmare Before Christmas has become socially problematic. The creator, Tim Burton, has said some really problematic things around his style of claymation of all things and why there aren't more Black characters because it really wouldn't fit that aesthetic. Didn't sit well with me. So I am really super jazzed that this fall, if y'all are fans of Key and Peele, right? If you're fans of Nope, if you're fans of things like this, he is coming out with an animated movie that's going to be in the style of like Coraline.
The Other Mother.
Watch Coraline, that stop animation movie, Coraline. He's coming out with a movie this fall. So I love to do those plywood cutouts in my yard. So we have retired Nightmare Before Christmas. So I'm excited that we're getting like new voices in that aesthetic. But we've kind of, me and Cameron have started decorating the house. I'm getting him to talk about how he wants to celebrate his birthday. Halicue will tell you birthdays due to some shared family trauma are very important to us. So he's doing we're like selecting what he wants to do for his birthday. But it's also, Halloween is also the transition to Dia de los Muertos, which is a culturally important holiday close to where I live. So I also try to help teach my kids about cultural celebrations and their connections to us. So I took both my boys to go see The Woman King actually with me, and it talked about ancestor altars. So for us, I kind of try to talk to my kids a lot about understanding the similarities between that cultural practice in the Latinx community and our community. So I have altars set up in my home all year round, but then we usually set up a family altar together. And so we'll celebrate that. And that's always October, so the 31st, November 1st and 2nd. So that's a big holiday here too. And there's lots of regional celebrations here. So for the first time, past 3 or 4 years, San Antonio has celebrated Dia de los Muertos officially as a city. So I tell people all the time that, look culturally in your city, like Halicue, you're in California, you got a crossroads of a ton of different cultures there, right? From like, your Asian Pacific Islander community. A lot of our indigenous cultures have a lot of community celebrations that are about understanding our ancestors during this time and change of the year too. So even though they might not celebrate Oya or some of our traditions, you'll notice like there's cultural traditions that you can celebrate in your particular area. And I always think it's important for us to teach our kids. I don't know if it's because both my grandparents were teachers, right? So you always had that chapter in your life of like Mississippi history or Texas history. We know those things are lacking from a school standpoint. Let me stand closer to the mic. We know those things are lacking. So it's also our responsibility, I feel like, to find ways to find images and celebrations and ways to connect those practices. So those are things that I'm doing around the home to celebrate. I'm really trying to keep it less stressed because I think a lot of times we focus a lot on the nitpicky, stressful things about the holidays. My house has got to be clean. I've got to present a certain way. New people coming to our space. All of that can be stressful, but at the same time, it's like you said, you're starting at the right point for you and Josh, setting intentions that it's about togetherness. It's about celebrating those who have come before us, but not necessarily letting them over influence and control our experience. I think that's our role is to find balance, right? We can celebrate traditions and still find a way to balance the need to have traditions of our own. Because I tell people all the time, those folks that are, I saw a TikTok today that said our first 8 years of his marriage, like we were spending all this time dissecting who's at whose house and who's at whose in-laws house. And what I want to tell people is with across all of these, trauma that we put on each other in the holidays or seasons of transitions, begin to think about these coming together this way. If you don't have your own time and space to set traditions, where do you think those traditions came from? They have to start somewhere, right? Somebody started doing that at your great Meemaw's house. Where is your space to start
and to have
that
balance
for you?
that way? Yeah, Andy, can I speak on that and on balance? And that has so much significance for us in particular because going into fall, we're going into Libra season. For us, Libras are freaking, at least are predominant. Our mother, 3, count them, 1, 2, 3 sisters, my eldest daughter, my husband. So balance. That's another thing. Like Andy and I. So when Andy's like, as we're contemplating all this, remember, yes, to take freaking care of ourselves because there's something about that preponderance of not needing to celebrate. We want to celebrate, but Libra, and that's that idea of balance and justice. Ooh, that's going to be, I think that should be our mantra going into it, Andy, because there's so much around that. And you're right. Where does the balance come between what we experienced as children, because that was just the family we were born into, versus when we begin to do our own creativity or create our own traditions, meals, things that we cook. Like I love the way Andy for Yule, Christmas, winter solstice, they don't necessarily make a turkey. Like they make like a big beef tenderloin or like crown roast. Like when do we start doing those things and how do we get balanced that way? There can be a challenge there, right? There's a challenge when some of the weight has to be taken off what we used to do versus what we enjoy and we intentionally do now. So I just wanted to speak on that.
And also our frenzy around it too, like in presence. I think fall is so much about presence and noticing the change. I tell people all the time, if you are worried about every single menu you're going to put on the table, if you worried about every single trip to the grocery store to get the German chocolate that don't even exist, that your mama knew was at the third grocery store, she didn't tell you till you went to 4 different other, like those kind of things. I tell people all the time, would you rather want me chasing chocolate or do you want me sitting here having a great conversation with you? I told my sister this here last time she visited. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I said, girl, your peace of mind is what's important. I told my adult children this. They just had a baby and we came to visit. I said, you will have the opportunity to get the matching towel sets, to do the decorative hand soap pumps, all that craziness that you will soothe by. Doesn't make a lot of sense anyway, but like you will get to do all that Martha Stewart stuff in time. But what I really want from you is just your presence. I want you to be comfortable. I don't want you to be stressed. Like, I want your house to feel like home to you. It really ain't my business, like presence and presentation. That's on you. Like, I let that stuff go a long time ago. Like, is your bed made every day? I mean, that's up to you. How do you want to come home to what your stuff is like? I just want you to be home and to be comfortable, right? And let's seek a way to try to, instead of be stressing about 15 events that you want to go to, let's talk about, what you want the experience to be like. And when you start to think about things that way and to change your lens, girl, like it dawned upon me a couple of days ago. What does that say that a set of young parents decided they want their first Christmas with their child to be with us at our home? What does that say about what we're already doing just with what he experienced as a kid growing up? Is there really anything else I need to do? Like, what other statement can be made about what I need to do? Like, is there a towel set
No.
that is going to mean more than that? Is there a perfect meal that's going to mean more than the fact that my oldest son said, you know what, we want our child's first Christmas to be at your home. It's the same carpet. It's the same couch he has had Christmas on. Like, that's what kids come home for. And if that's
what you want, that's what you want to bring in. Here's some practical hoodoo.
Exactly.
And you don't know how to do it because maybe you're still trapped in, well, big mama and so-and-so want me to do this, or my husband's mama wants me to do this. And I feel like all I want to do is prepare my home for my child to come home. If that's heavy on your heart, take it to your ancestor altar. Take it to your altar. Put it down in front of the ancestors.
Yeah.
Ask them, how help me release some of this so I can do what is best for me, what is best for my son or my daughter, my first grandchild, and making this a loving, welcoming space so that we create that bond. Take that. That's some practical hoodoo for you.
And be present. And understand that there might be a day when my son says, okay, now we're confident, we're somewhere, I'm going to do something different. That too is going to be a happy day for me too. Because this season is about understanding transition. Like, be grateful when things happen, be present in what's going on in front of you, because change is inevitable. And that's a good thing too. Like, I remember when we all came home for Christmas, there's a time now where we say, hey, we want to create our own experience. All that is a wonderful part of growth and should be a part of the natural experience, right? I'm going to be honest with you. There's going to be a time when I get these kids out the house. I want a Christmas in Bali. I want a Christmas hither, yon, and who else knows where. So I think it just also too is when we think about this season of transformation, I think it's also important to think about presence when you're preparing your home too, right? Presence, transformation, and being able to look forward to what's at the end of change. I think a lot of times, sometimes we focus on like the nature of, like the tower nature of change, right? Things have to be destroyed, whatever. But then there's also the excitement of something new. What comes next? Right? After we start this season of transformation, then we go into this season of rebuilding, right? Which is winter. And we'll talk about that then, but it's all to build power for this new thing that's going to happen in your life. So I think about falls like sunsets. It's time to sit, reflect a little bit, relax, but then also know that, as the sun sets, there's also work to be done to kind of help prepare us to regenerate so we can get ready to bring forth change all over again in the spring, right? Because that's another season of change that we go through in spring. So I love this part of the year. I used to tell Halicue, if you listen to our last podcast, it is the season that I feel is like the Michelle of Destiny's Child. Right? Like she is either reviled, right, or just not giving. And I'm not trying to say like anything about you, Michelle, but I think we all know that, like, we know you didn't mean to be that girl in the story. And sometimes I think that way about fall. You know what it brings to mind to me? Another lovely, lovely actress. Halicue, you're going to say her name. What is the actress's name that just won an Emmy in Abbott Elementary? Because we're both huge Abbott Elementary fans.
Dreamgirls, Sheryl Lee Ralph, Queen.
So Sheryl Lee Ralph. It was so funny because on TikTok, there's a lot of these postings of, oh, Beyonce sent her some flowers and was like, oh, congratulations, you're the original Dreamgirls. And I'm like, girl, there's a whole generation of people who don't understand. Like, it is great to receive. It's almost like us celebrating. How can I put this? Z-Way sending Oprah, flowers.
Yeah, yeah.
Congratulations on your talk show celebration turning 50. You would be oh, you don't get it right. And Beyonce completely, there was a reason she sent the flowers for that very reason, right? Like crediting someone who basically is this iconic, this iconic role. Blackened Broadway, right? Like this was a show that also was a trendsetter in that it told a very Black story on Broadway stages, right? Which it just does not happen a lot. So, so it makes me, that's what I feel like about fall, right? It's something that it takes people so long to realize the importance of this season to us. It's not just for your pumpkin spice girls. It's just not for you to dress up like Han Solo and go take pictures in pumpkin patches, right? Like, and I love Halloween as much as the next person, but there really is a lot of these important celebrations. So like
for me, the most important place in my house during this season, it's an amazing season here in California because this is when the rainy season starts, and I have a big fireplace that's in the middle of the living room. It's where one of my most important, my hearth altar is. I'm going to be giving so much love and attention and care there. I'm going to make sure I have plenty of firewood. That's going to be a place and a thing that I'm going to be, that I'm going to be spending a lot of time at. I'm going to be gathered around that. I'm going to be thinking about how can I make that space a more loving space. And I'm really going to be listening as much as I can and trying to rededicate myself to especially to my ancestor, like veneration and my ancestor practices, and rereading, coming up with new spreads, making sure do I take time with the cards, truly kneeling in front of and asking for guidance, but I'm definitely going to be doing that. That's going to, as we get ready to say goodbye and get into it. To me, I wish I could say every single fall is, oh, we do this and then we do that. And I feel like every time I have no idea how it's going to be different, but damn if it's not different every single year. I feel like I'm coming to this autumn very humbly. So much has taken place. We've broken through some big barriers. I just turned 50. I'm sending in a young woman out into the world. It's an amazing time, but I feel like I'm coming to it humbled, and those are the parts of the home I'm gonna be focusing on, and y'all hear more of us talk about it. Oh, Andy, and I want to tell people too. Now, Andy and I are doing things a little bit differently than maybe we did 10 or 15 years ago, where everything, the beginning and the end of all the holiday season would have been how much time. Getting to Mississippi.
And girl, I wonder about that with my kids too, because I'm like, when he comes home, it's going to be a little different than when you were growing up with Christmas.
So now we have come to some very enlightened and some places. We're sitting kind of in strength right now coming into this, but not all of us are. Not all of us are, but y'all, we've done so many episodes, especially last holiday season about, and I want y'all to go back and I want y'all to re-listen on grounding, on spiritual boundaries, because some of us have to be in other people's homes that we don't necessarily rock with the dysfunction or the dynamic, but that we're still, we still feel that we have to. We don't sit in any judgment on that. We have been there, and we have had to use our spirituality or who do our practice to get us through. Not even necessarily to heal during this whole time, but just to keep ourselves safe and to protect ourselves. And so I'm for real. So go back and listen.
I have this look on my face and sometimes boundaries just change.
So y'all go back.
I think about that episode last year. Sometimes boundaries, sometimes it might be time to reassess.
But
I tried a boundary. It
didn't work. So now do it.
A lot of us are coming to the season where I've seen way, way too many TikToks about villain mode.
Mm-hmm.
Or the winter of my discontent. When you go back and listen to those episodes, know that we go back and listen to.
Yeah.
And understand that those conversations are a moment in time.
Yeah.
So even some of the greatest practices you have in the world are different every single time you come to them.
Go back and get them. Get that goodness, because some of we're
Octavia Butler, right? God has changed. That was one of the things in our book. Like, they're really like one of the governing forces in our life that we pretty much know is real. Is what? That things are going to change. Wait 2 minutes. Yeah. So just because you set good boundaries and you've got these great practices, don't always assume that the situation you will meet will always be the same. And people need different things from us at different times. So I'm curious to see, Q, like through the eyes of our children, like when Hallie comes home, it's always curious to me. And I used to ask this question of the triplets, like, what did you miss most?
Yeah.
Right? Because we always think in our mind what we would think our kids would be nostalgic over. But then when you talk to them, it's something completely different. I remember the first times when you were away from home. And I remember at Thanksgiving, you used to call and be like, just tell me what y'all are eating. And I'd be like, what? This is like weird food porn. She was like, no, I need you to describe it. Because I remember telling her, like, we're having regular Thanksgiving stuff. She'd be like, no, what I need you to do. And
it was so mad, bad. I'm not going to get into those sad, pitiful, lacking in not only flavor, but in just love of preparation and presentation.
Food speaks so much to us.
For years. Like, I'm not, until my mom actually told me one year to buck the F up, Buttercup, and I'm tired of hearing you po-mouthing, because that's what Mom called it. I'm tired of hearing you po-mouthing and bad talking those people and their food. So you show up with a corn pudding and some collard greens and some black eye.
And you got to change your circumstances. Don't subject yourself. Don't you subject yourself to that terrible
mess. My mom doesn't always, her messages of empowerment don't always come across. It was really one of her most loving.
They do not. The delivery is not her gift.
She goes, you know how to make a sweet potato pie. I'm going to need you to buck up and take some food over there. People are hungry. How come you... So anyway, oh goodness, I had not thought about that.
And I will say the same thing, just like Halicue had to be proactive. There's also something to be said about setting strong boundaries of like, no. A lot of my boundary setting is just around no and can't. And it may be I'm going to extend more, but whatever that is, assess every time you're together. So definitely go back and listen to those episodes. And we ought to do that one time, Q. We ought to do a listening party where we sit down and listen to the episodes and say, okay, girl, let me tell you how that worked. But, just always remember that those conversations, you owe it to yourself to give yourself time to assess those conversations as they come and to determine the energy of your holidays. I think that was one of the big thing about those series is, Q, it spoke a lot about by understanding the seasons, by understanding what is coming next and what the purpose of each season is, hopefully it works to help support you through those times of transition and change. So, I hope you go back and listen to those episodes. I hope that's a resource for you. Listen to our shows. We're kind of one of those people that even though we do these organized shows about the season, we also talk about our real lives in each episode too. So we're pretty transparent about how we are coping and things that we go through and things we love about the season. I know for us, these summers have been super, super busy for us. I'm looking forward, and when I say this, Halicue's going to shoot daggers at me. I hate being a slave to social media, but I do love sharing about kind of what I'm doing with my work. And it's time for me to turn back towards sharing that with you guys again. Summer gets super busy for me. And one part about getting to be reflective, and you asked me about how I'm preparing cues, as a metalsmith and a candle maker, summer is a super hot time to be working on both of those crafts. So in the fall is really when I start to get a lot of creative energy, because then into winter, when it's much cooler, that's when we do a lot of our production, right? That's when we're doing a lot of work and creating stuff and doing things. So as a creative person for me too, that is a huge part of fall and winter. And it took me becoming a spiritual person to understand like, just as the ground and the earth is backfilling and enriching, and like Halicue says, turning to self-care, it would make sense that would inspire my creativity. It makes sense that that's what inspires people to want to seek community. Because here's also a warning time. This is also a time, and this is red flag times, where I see all these TikToks about, it's time to get booed up. It's fixing to be winter season. It's cuffing season. It's time to, do I have a relationship to go into the fall with? That we have this in the fall, kind of like we talked about it during spring. There's this awakening, and you want to go out and kind of stretch yourself like a peacock. When we talk about going into the fall, there is a lot of comfort energy to it, right? We want to seek comfort. We want to seek being with others, and we want to seek community. Be careful that desire doesn't outweigh some of those same practices you need to do to keep yourself safe and protected. And that's an extension of what Halicue's saying to you just about these family systems, right? Like, do we want to all be Norman Rockwell sitting around a fire, or like an episode of Good Times at Christmas where everybody was all together and laughing and opening presents? And, even though people fight, we all come together at the end. Yeah, but it's not a Tyler Perry movie. Right? Sometimes you have to fight your own best instincts and some of these messages that you hear out here that you're bombarded with, that just because it's Christmas and we need you to buy X number of gifts, all things should be forgiven. And, you should forget these lessons that you learned over the year. Just also take it easy on yourself and understand that some of these messages are engineered a certain way, and they don't necessarily take into context your culture or your experience. And be okay with that. That's the one thing I love about fall, is as we go into transformation Q, I have found this summer for me personally has been a lot about living my authentic self and how I can incorporate that into my story going into fall too, right? Like, as you transform, how are we championing and empowering ourselves to make space for who we are authentically? And I'm gonna shut up.
And I'm gonna and one last little tip. And maybe I'll even pull one last card, like as we say goodbye. These are all big concepts. So I want to, especially to folks that are turning us on for the first time and listening to this for the first time, here's a little tip, because everybody may not be ready, or you may still be 17, 18, 19, still kind of operating by, the system that the people that are paying the bills in your life, have like set up. Wherever we are, a way to take this and begin to work with it and to bring spirit into how we move forward around this and how we get into fall and start thinking about our traditions and truly living and enjoying the season. When things come up that feel anxious, like when the anxiety arises, like when in contemplating fall, what's happening, like this celebration, Thanksgiving, or getting ready for Christmas, or, kids, what's going on, the Halloween parties, as anxiety comes up around it, try to sit with it and get down to the bottom of it. Even take a note do a voice note, write it down in a journal. Like, when did it come up? What were you thinking about when it came up? What were you, in anticipation of? So you can start to journal about it, pull cards on it when you're doing your meditation, or when you're in front of your ancestor altar. You can, like, what does that mean? Like, ancestors, like, speak to me, like, about, this concern, this anxiety, like, start to work with it so that you can figure out whether or not this is something you even want in your life, or something you want to participate in. So if you can't, like, well, I'm going to do this different. If you can't, you can't, because on a scale of 1 to 10, like, that's working at a 9 or a 10. That's working at like a level of maturity and mastery maybe you're not there for. But just as a way to begin, start taking notes, start thinking about where those feelings, those anxieties are sitting in the body, and just take note of it, write it down. And then we can, that's when we bring the cards in, or we could bring candles in, or some ritual in, or around. So I just wanted to add that as a little practical tip before we get ready to say goodbye.
All good advice, Halicue. All good advice.
Andi, anything else you want to say before we say we go on out and say goodbye to folks?
Just take time to be present. Fall is an amazing time.
All right.
Embrace change.
Oh my God. I pulled a final card for us. It's justice. These Libras going to wear us out. I don't know. This is not some prognostication of what's to come, but y'all, let's really work on trying to inculcate and bring in balance in Libra season as we get ready to look at that.
Or just stay away from them, which is awesome.
Oh my God. We love y'all, but damn, Libra, y'all wear us out. Y'all wear these two hoodoos out like around like October. We love y'all so much. Thank you for joining us on The New Hoodoo. We are so grateful to each and every one of you that hangs out with us on our virtual porch every week to be in sisterhood with us as we all continue to build and evolve the pillars of our spiritual craft. We love delivering all of this magical audio goodness directly to your ear holes every single week. So take this delicious moment to tap the subscriber button so you never miss a single episode, and to always make sure that each episode lands softly and safely into your podcast player or inbox. But if this week's episode really delighted, inspired you, we really want you to know we want to hear from you. We love a good review. And as a special treat, if you leave us a 5-star review and if you leave a little narrative review, we will shout you out and read it out loud on the next show. You can also email us at pillarsporchpath@gmail.com and tell us what's going on in your mind, in your world. Really, I cannot say it enough. Like, we don't stand on ceremony around here. Like, we're from the dirty South. We want to hear from you. We want for y'all to participate. We want you to get in where you fit in. And we especially want to hear, is there anything in particular you'd like for us to talk about? Like, what magical topics would you like for us to introduce or explore in this amazing season, or maybe even in season 6? Of course, we want you to follow us on social media. All of our handles for Instagram, Twitter, YouTube are down there in the show notes. And we especially want you to get into our new home on the Geneva app. This is our brand new and really fabulous free community that Andy and I are creating just for you. This is where we're going to be dropping our pre-show shenanigans and the extra special content that we're revealing just for you. And for you dear hearts, as my mom used to say, you darlings that just want to say thank you for all of the love that we try to spread here on Beyonce's internet. You can absolutely buy us a coffee by clicking on the sparkly coffee link in the show notes. Now, all right, you heavenly and hot hoodoos, boss witches, and sexy as fuck sorcerers and spellcasters, I know that you all are so excited to talk about this next topic. I know this because we've gotten some requests for it. We attempted to record this episode a couple of months ago, but we had some snafus and our audio quality and equipment is so much better. We decided to give it another shot. We are going to be talking about magic spell work that you are already doing. The next episode is going to be about sacred adornments and how to create and imbue our favorite wearable art, our favorite wearable spells, talismans, amulets like rings, necklaces, Toby's hands, mojo bags, like so many things that we kind of adorn, decorate, or keep on our bodies. We're going to be talking all about that. So look out for that in the next episode of The New Hoodoo. Bye, y'all.